Back here at Amaroo Park Raceway, we're preparing for round 9 of the Australian Touring Car Championship. That's the Better Breaks 100. Let's see how they'll line up. From pole position, car 26, Colin Bond in the Alfa Romeo. From 2, car number 17, Dick Johnson of Queensland in the Mustang. From 362, series leader Jim Richards in the BMW. From 4, 21, Robbie Francevic of New Zealand in the Volvo. From 5 is car 5, Peter Brock in the Commodore. From 6, 23, Tony Longhurst in the BMW. From 7 is 96, Tim Slako from Western Australia in the Rover. From position 8, 31, Neville Crichton of New Zealand in the BMW. From 9, number 7, David Parsons in the Commodore. From 10 is car 3, Ken Bagent of New Zealand in the BMW. From 11 is car 10, John Smith in the Corolla. And from 12 is car 22, Glenn Malloy in the BMW. And rounding off the rest of the starters, Gary Wilmington of the Jag, Brian Sampson, Drew Price, Jim Keogh, Mike Quinn, Laurie Hazelton, Chris Heyer, John Craft, Phil Parsons and Mike Mania. We're about 20 seconds away from the start of this important round 9 of the Australian Touring Car Championship, the Better Breaks 100. And for only the third time, we have a new man on pole position. It's Colin Bond of Sydney. The start will be vital for Bond and Jim Richards. The flag is up. And they're racing and getting away smartly as Colin Bond. He's won the start. Richards has muffed the start again. Francevic has dropped into third. And now it's Dick Johnson going out, and Francevic goes too as Bond is slow to pick up a gear. Francevic looks for Johnson as they go to the top of the hill, and Queensland's Dick Johnson for the second straight round has taken over the lead.
Peter Brock caught out wide.
Francevic is back in second spot. Bond looking for the inside way on Francevic. Jim Richards followed by Peter Brock, and Gary Wilmington making a great start in the Jaguar as they come down towards Mazda Corner, but it's Queensland's Dick Johnson in front.
Wilmington came from 13th spot on the grid. He's made a lightning start.
Johnson through Honda Corner. Second spot being held down by Robbie Francevic, then Colin Bond, Jim Richards, Peter Brock. Next is Wilmington, David Parsons. They were then followed by Tony Longhurst, and then Tim Slako of Western Australia, Bagent, and of course Neville Crichton. They come out of the turn along the short straight to Wonderlick Corner. That's how close they go to the concrete wall there. Then back across the strike with Johnson opening the gap already over the Volvo. And here's Richards starting to come into it as he works his way on the outside now of Colin Bond up to the top of the hill. You'll see the split in a moment. Johnson goes through Francevic, then Jim Richards, and Brock has got through on the outside. Has he? Yes, of Colin Bond. So Bond, after sitting on pole, has gone back about 5 spots. This is where the interest is. New Zealander Robbie Francevic in the Turbo Volvo, and Jim Richards in car number 62.
Francevic having just a little trouble keeping the tail of that Volvo under control on the tight circuit here at Amaroo Park. Richards is just a little wary of him as they go into the corners. The Volvo tending to drift a little bit across the corners. Meantime, Johnson's opened up a pretty decent break going through the lake corner, about 60 metres. Francevic in second, then Richards. Fourth place, Peter Brock, then Colin Bond.
There's Jill Johnson, Dick's wife, doing the scoring and the timing. Hubby's in front, looking good at this stage. Here's Francevic, really steaming up the hill there in the Volvo Turbo. And, of course, right behind him is the series leader, Jim Richards. And the big problem for Richards is going to be, if he wants to really race them hard, he has to be very careful of tyre wear. Johnson's car easy on tyres. Francevic's isn't all that easy because of the amount of way the car moves around in the corners on those narrow wheels.
Francevic, in fact, is running a special compound this weekend in the Pirelli radials of the D3. He's got an unusual test set of tyres, which he believes will put him in pretty good stead. But Jim Richards at the moment all over the back of the Volvo as they go through the left-hander at Honda, and I think Richards now well positioned down towards the right-hander at the late corner. Who's going to be the bravest?
It'll be Robbie.
We'll see if Richards can cut under him as they come out of the corner.
Oh, Frank says, get on with the boy. Francevic still holding second, Jim back in third, and Tricky Dicky at the front of the field in number 17, the Palmer Tube Mills Mustang V8.
Peter Brock is fourth, then Colin Bond fifth, followed by Tony Longhurst, and then David Parsons in the second of the dealer team Commodores.
Robbie Francevic blew a head gasket in this car again yesterday. They blew and locks the front right, lets Richards through. Jim Richards for second place.
That's all it takes for Jim Richards. One brake lock up, Richards is through, and Francevic will never pick up that second again, I don't believe.
Francevic broke an engine mounting also in practice yesterday, so they had their dramas and they blew an engine last Thursday. They've been working very hard to get the car competitive again, whereas the JPS team once again having a pretty trouble-free run in qualifying, and again looked pretty threatening, although Dick Johnson this time with a very healthy brake, so it's a la Lakeside. Look at as Francevic closes the gap under brakes through the right-hander. Brock gets close behind Francevic. And Colin Bond still hanging on very nicely behind Brock as the flame comes ripping out of the exhaust pipe of the turbo Volvo.
I think the Bond team have gone for a hard compound tyre also. They plan to be around with the Alpha at the end of this race up towards the front.
Yes, for the first time in a long while, the Alpha team have gone for, again, the Pirelli Radial, and they've gone for two different compounds. The front of the car's using the softer D5 compound, whereas the back of the car, they're using the D3s.
There's Richards going through. Francevic is the next one back behind him. And, of course, Peter Brock and 26 pole sitter Colin Bond in the Alpha GTV6. Well, it's almost a repeat of Lakeside, with Johnson scurrying away, Richards in hot pursuit, then Francevic and Brock and Colin Bond. Tony Longhurst is well in the top 10. There's Enrico Zannarini. It all looked good on paper when he started off the front, but at the moment he's just back in the pack.
Talking about tyres and unusual combinations, Dick Johnson this weekend is using 3 different compounds of tyre on the 4 corners of the car, can you believe?
Well, it's
He's
working.
using a combination of A7, A17 and A18 Avon tyres.
Well, he's got the magic formula.
That's right.
It's certainly worked
To be a witch doctor to work that one out. Here's Colin Bond in 26, hanging in there behind Peter Brock as they go down towards Mazda Corner.
The interesting thing here with 52 laps total journey, and by no means put the glasses down at this stage, because the bigger cars, the heavier cars will have strife with tyres, but Dick Johnson at the moment making the most of the situation with a healthy gap over Jim Richards, and as we said before, his tyre combination putting him in very good stead. The gap between first and second, 2.6 seconds, and Dick Johnson shooting for what could potentially be his first Australian Touring Car Championship win this year.
There's Johnson coming across the start-finishing line at Amaroo Park. Richards, I would believe at this stage, gaining slightly. Robbie Francevic back on the pace in the 21 Turbo Volvo. Then Peter Brock and, of course, Colin Bond in the 26 machine. Dick Johnson carrying race cam pictures for us as he moves on to the back straightaway. I know you're busy, Dick. How's it going? Mike Raymond. Dick, I know you're busy. How's it going?
Oh, mate, everything's fine at the moment. We're just trying to look after the tyres.
Okay, you can't really stretch it too much, can you, with tyre wear at this track?
It's a long way to go.
Should your car be easier on tyres than the BMW?
See, we'll soon find out, Mike, I think.
Okay, let you get back to it. So Dick Johnson with it all to do, because I think at this stage, even the people on the hill here, and there's thousands of them, notice that Richards is starting to pull back that gap on Dick Johnson.
2.1 seconds, so he's closed half a second in one lap. And Johnson that time through didn't seem to make a clean gear change of it, so Richards really starting to close.
Dropping over the top of Bitchapave Hill and now down into Dunlop Loop. Johnson away quickly off the line, the same as Lakeside. Jim Richards in the 62 black BMW, galloping back as far as 4th and then coming back to put the pressure on the race leader.
Dick had to put a clutch in the car after Friday's practice session. They had some problems there. As we take race cam once again and look at Dick Johnson hard at work. Again, we see that oil light coming on where he gets oil surge in the bottom of the sump of the Mustang, and the red light flashes as he goes by Mike Minear to the right-hander at stop corner. You can see just how hard he works at the wheel. Then it's to the right-hander at Wonderlic.
Doesn't take long to get into the slower traffic here at Amaroo. Only 8 laps gone and already.
To 4th gear up the straight, and then he grabs 5th just briefly across the top at Bitchapave. Same gearing that he used at Lakeside. Found it very hard yesterday to try and get the right kind of gear ratios for the circuit because it's so tight and twisty.
Making sure the car doesn't get too skatey through that corner, starting to overheat the tyres or anything. So Johnson's clear, driving it nicely, coming down towards Mazda Corner. There's the man stalking him, and that, of course, is Jim Richards. Francevic back in a consistent and solid 3rd at this stage. There's Francevic going through as Johnson comes through Honda Corner. Richards still making the break on him as they come down to the lake corner. Confirmation of placing so far. Johnson leading the race. Richards in 2nd, and 3rd place Robbie Francevic.
11 laps gone, 41 remaining, and that's the view out the rear window of Dick Johnson's car, with Jim Richards in hot pursuit.
He's certainly getting closer, coming down to Mazda corner, and all the time Richards, who of course has dominated the Better Break series here at Amaroo Park since it started. It's been very easy on tyres, Richards. Not down to any record-breaking laps. Slowly but surely he's been hauling back Johnson. And Francevic not that far back behind Richards at this stage.
Well, for Richards, it's been a win at Winton, Wanneroo, Adelaide, Calder, Surfers and Lakeside, with second placing at Sandown and, of course, a fifth back at Simmons. So it's not a bad performance from Jim Richards.
And he's won 9 races out of 9 starts here at Amaroo so far.
Yeah.
It's a good average. So Dick Johnson, after setting up a big lead in this 9th round of the Better Breaks 100 at Amaroo Park, finds the same old storyline coming into play. The man who missed the start is back on his tail again, and that's Jim Richards.
I am very surprised at the performance of the Volvo, though, Mike. He's overcome a lot of trouble yesterday and earlier in the week, and they're hanging in there very nicely indeed. And I would have thought that perhaps Brock would have been giving Francevic a little bit more courage just at this stage.
Well, the Volvo is very clearly in 3rd place, well ahead of Brock and Bond, but all said and done, Francevic's still got a lot of ground to make up on this pair.
And all the time, Richards getting closer to the back of the Mustang. Frank Gardner, the team manager of the JPS team.
Happy-looking soul.
Yeah.
He knows Jim's on the move. That'll brighten up his day. To the top of Bitchapave Hill again. Dick Johnson goes over Nissan Skyline, dropping into Dunlop Loop.
Next lap or two could tell the tale here.
The point situation in the Australian Touring Car Championship, of course, sees Jim Richards leading with 188, Johnson second with 146. And even when you accept the correction of points and drop the worst performance from Jim, which is a 5th, as I said before, he still has 173 points, putting him well clear of Johnson. So a high finish, even in the top dozen or so today, will see Jim Richards seal the touring car crown.
Now we'll find out how serious Dick is about winning the race. To the lake corner, Lakeside, he was probably 1 metre offline, and that's all it needed for Richards to zip the BMW down the inside of him and take over the lead. To the side of that BMW, the rear vision mirror might stir Johnson on as they head up the hill again. He's trying to conserve the tyres as well, Dick Johnson. And Jim Richards has been doing just that. That's how close they are as they drop down into Dunlop Loop. Both using an identical line. Richards having a little look there at the inside. That's how close they are. And Richards now down the inside. And there he goes through on the inside of Johnson. Left him no room, but that's tough. That's racing. And Jim Richards goes through to lead round 9 of the Australian Touring Car Championship, the Better Breaks 100 here at Amaroo Park. And off he goes down towards the lake corner. Johnson still in second. Not even a smile yet from Frank Gardner.
Just looking a little smug, however. And news comes through, Mike, that car number 12, Gary Wilmington, has retired to the pits as well in the Jaguar.
That's unfortunate because he got a great start and moved up very quickly into 6th spot after 2 laps. But then steadily dropped back through the field. Obviously something is amiss, the car not running anywhere near full potential, and whether or not they'll have an opportunity to rectify it remains to be seen. The laps go pretty quickly here.
It sounds like there's a miss in the car. You can probably hear in the background. And Wilmington broke a diff in this car yesterday, which they worked frantically to repair. And so you can see the complexities of the V12 Jaguar. The crew working on it at the moment. They've got around about an extra 50 or 60 brake horsepower out of this engine in the last few weeks. And with the new sponsorship that's being provided by Rolly Walker, Gary Wilmington, I think, is going to be more of a threat than a lot of people have reckoned.
Well, bad luck there for Gary Wilmington in the XJS Jag. Anything to be said for poor Gary with all the experiments they're carrying out with the car, as he's not far away from home. It'll be a long way to have to tow the car back from interstate. There's Tony Longhurst at the moment running 6th in the race. And don't be surprised if Longhurst can't improve on that and get it up to maybe even 3rd by the time the checkered flag comes out.
Yeah, it's 6th and closing at the moment onto the back of Colin Bond. They didn't have qualifying tyres for this car yesterday because it's a rather unusual size on the 323BM. But slowly but surely, Longhurst getting into the groove. The man who they are saying at this stage is tipped to partner Jim Richards in this year's James Hardy 1000 in October. And this most presentable, very delightfully built 323 BMW is being very well piloted by Tony Longhurst at the moment. Frankly, I think a little bit tidier than he was at Lakeside when we saw him a couple of weeks ago.
He's done most of his racing this season at this racetrack, so he knows the circuit very, very well indeed. He's run the rounds of the Better Break series here. This Peter Brock coming up and going through now, followed by Colin Bond, and then the one making the ground on Bond is Tony Longhurst in car number 23, driving for BMW Motorsport.
Mike Minear, the back of the Volvo, smoking just a little.
So Longhurst continues up Bitchupave Hill in pursuit of Colin Bond, looking at trying to pick up 5th place in this race.
Longhurst picked up a 7th place at the last round of the Australian Touring Car Championship, and that was his first appearance in that series, although, as you said before, has done very well in the Better Break series so far. And this is where the development will head with the BMWs come season 1986.
There's Peter Brock,
car number 5. Has been under a little black shadow in the last few weeks, hasn't really performed up to full standard.
Here's Robbie Francovic just ahead of them, passing Jim Keogh and Drew Price, I think it is. And Peter Brock coming up behind those at the moment. There's John Harvey managing the dealer team affairs here at Amaroo Park.
56.3 doesn't see him lapping too quickly, as you can see by the board as he whistles past Jim Keogh. Slowly but surely, I would suggest that Peter Brock would be finding the weight of the Commodore to his disadvantage, and particularly in the way that it would punish tyres on the tight and twisty Amaroo circuit. In fact, it's no secret that Brock doesn't particularly feel at home here in this car.
Yes, he needs the wide open stretches, doesn't he, to really get into the spirit of things.
You're quite right there, Gary. Besides that, Brock was the fastest qualifier for the last Australian Championship round here at Amaroo, and that was 7 years ago. And in fact, on that day, Alan Moffat in a Ford
You got a good memory?
led the race practically all the way, and Alan Grice pulled one of his specials in the last corner.
Talking about leading the race, Jim Richards does, but Johnson's having another crack at him here.
Well, he hasn't pulled away from Johnson.
Well, I think the big problem here is, as you can quite clearly see from race cam, the traffic, and there's plenty of it. Under 3 litre and 2 litre cars getting in the way. Chris Hire in the Audi. And it's not really so much a case of getting in the way, but where can you go? As I said before, tight and twisty. Not a lot of open space. They're coming now onto the back of the Glenn Malloy ex-Jim Richards BMW, the car which lost a wheel here at the last round of the Better Break series. And look out, Chris Hire, because Dick Johnson needs the space.
Well, Johnson would appreciate that.
Malloy will, in fact, be selling this car very shortly and heading to the States for a couple of months. And already has a couple of nibbles on the vehicle as we watch Dick Johnson close again on Jim Richards coming out of the right-hander at Winfield.
They're coming up now on Glenn Malloy in the BMW.
And
we'll see how he goes.
Jill Johnson and the crew looking on. A busy scene down there in pit lane as the boards are sent out to the drivers. Johnson comes up now to the back of Glenn Malloy. Richards getting through, I think it's Bob Holden in the Sprinter, and there
Somebody's
is car number
missing,
21.
yeah.
Robbie Francovic out of business. So the Volvo pulls off to the side of the circuit, and the car that was holding down 3rd place will not pick up any points in this 9th round of the Australian Touring Car Championship. So that's an ongoing disastrous week for the team.
That elevates Peter Brock to 3rd place on the racetrack now, with Colin Bond still holding down 4th place.
In fact, change there, Gary, because Longhurst has got through on Bond as Robbie Francovic has a look at the plumbing of the Volvo. And their big problem has been trying to find out the right compression ratio. There's Mark Petch, the owner of the car, a disappointed man. Blew a head gasket yesterday, broken engine mounting as we go back to our leader. And, of course, at the present time, Jim Richards in car number 62 still with a healthy gap over Dick Johnson, even though he has to thread his way through traffic. But even more interesting now will be just how quick this little BM can come through the field. Up to 4th place at the moment into car 23, displacing Colin Bond. So the BMW team looking good.
Doing it comfortably, Jim Richards in the 62 black BMW from Dick Johnson in 17. Brock is third in car number 5. Tony Longhurst is 4th. Colin Bond is 5th. And 6th place would be held down by David Parsons.
It's funny you should mention the 1978 round of the Australian Touring Car Championship before, Mike, because when you look back at times, you often hear people talking about the new Group A cars as though they were perhaps nothing much more than about a road car. And people tell you about the great old days of A9X Tiranas and two-door Fords and so forth. In actual fact, these Group A cars qualified and are racing quicker than those cars were here 7 years ago, and by quite some margin.
Puts the lid on the knockers of Group A, doesn't it?
Yep. And in less than 12 months, they've been able to bring these cars up to full competitiveness.
There's Dick Johnson. We're following at the moment. Still trailing Jim Richards, but treating the tyres with a lot of care. Still quite a few laps to run in this 9th round.
They've completed 23 laps, in fact, Mike.
So 23 of 52 laps completed, and everyone worried about tyre wear here at Amaroo Park.
Well, Dick Johnson, they say that the opera isn't over until the fat lady sings. Are you going to burst into song before the end of the day?
I don't know, but he's the goddamnedest pursuer I ever goddamn pursued.
He's a tough cookie, isn't he?
Talk about Smokey and the Bandit, mate. This is ridiculous. He's been playing with us.
Dick, how are your tyres holding up?
Mate, I'm trying to look after him without letting him get too far away, and it's not an easy job around here, I'll tell you.
Do you feel you made the right choice mixing up the compounds?
Yes, I certainly did. The car feels really good at the moment. Really good. It just sort of gets a little bit taily out of corners, but no worse than anyone else's.
He hasn't got that far away from you, Dick.
No, I'm trying not to let him either.
All right, we'll let you pursue Jim Richards. Hope it comes off for you as we get down to lap 52. Dick, thanks a million.
Thanks, pal.
There's a good scrap that's been going on for a while between Neville Crichton in the second of the JPS BMWs, car number 31, and another Kiwi, Kent Bagent, the privateer, in car number 3, another of the BMs. And poor old Croaky Crichton has been getting a severe working over here from some of the lads today.
And not far in behind this pair, Mike, we've got Tim Slako, another Kiwi, although domiciled in WA, who's brought the Rover Vitesse over to the Eastern States for the first time, and is not doing all that badly for his first time around Amaroo Park, because it's a very tricky circuit to learn.
Driving the Alf Barbagallo Rover, coming out of Dunlop Loop, and he'll get stronger as the race goes on. Meantime, poor old Croaky Crichton here in 31 finds a car number 11, John Smith, in the little Toyota, going for a class win again here today. But John moves to the side of the road, and this great scrap continues. Let's recap the placings. Jimmy Richards leading round 9. Second is Dick Johnson, and third is Peter Brock.
Back at Amaroo Park in the 9th round of the Touring Car Championship, and car 10, driven by John Smith, is the Toyota Corolla, and Johnny Smith has won the 2-litre category in every round of the Touring Car Championship that he's contested so far in 1985, and he looks like doing it again today. He's in 10th position outright on the racetrack and really continues to mix it with the bigger cars. He qualified extremely well in 11th position on the grid, in fact, so he's made up one spot on the bigger cars, and this car will continue to circulate all day, you know that.
Yes, and his best performance was back at Winton with a 7th, so he'd be looking good today, particularly with a small car around here, perhaps getting close to that or even bettering it. He lies 7th in the championship with a total of 98 points. Former Rookie of the Year at Bathurst, second to Roberto Marino in the Australian Grand Prix back in 1983, and I guess really is an open wheel specialist, but joins Toyota Team Australia this year.
He's sandwiched at the moment between race leader Jim Richards and Dick Johnson.
Not doing a bad job passing Jim Keogh either in the Commodore.
He's been trying for a few laps.
He's got Keogh, and it won't be long before Johnson arrives on his tail.
It's interesting, John Smith has been continually breaking lap records that were set by Peter Williamson, the 2-litre Celica from a few years back, so it just shows you how quick some of the Group A under 2-litre cars are as well.
Cars running in about the 55-second category.
Yes.
And good thinking there on the part of John Smith. Already, as he made his way onto the hill, he already had his arm pointing for Johnson to go around him on what side and moved across the course. So the thinking driver is John Smith. There's a few of them here today that are not.
Smithy, like a lot of our drivers, has been a former Formula Ford driver to Europe Series winner. And his other great claim to fame, of course, was winning the under 2-litre class at Bathurst back in 1981 with Peter Williamson when they were in the Toyota.
Here he comes up on Chris Hyatt. Number 53 takes higher as well.
He's certainly got it mobile at the moment. A little 1.6-litre twin overhead cam Toyota, a lovely piece of machinery. And if you ever have the opportunity to look at this car in the pits, particularly well engineered, and from the racing division of Toyota in Japan.
30 laps gone in this 9th round of the Touring Car Championship. Looks like Neville Crichton there just in behind John Smith at the present time. But up front it continues to be Jim Richards leading the race from Dick Johnson, and Peter Brock holding down third, coming up fast on Jim Keogh.
I tell you, also coming up on the fast lane behind Peter Brock is Tony Longhurst. And I don't think it'll be long before Tony is there to put the pressure on, and there he is. Oh, Keogh
is
yes,
like the proverbial mad woman's breakfast.
Oh, and Tony getting all sideways as well as he tries to thread his way through. So the pressure really on here, and he can sense that this could be the big one for Tony Longhurst's career. They now have some clear road in front of them. Peter Brock down to the stop corner, and with around about 1 second gap over Tony Longhurst. And there's Tony in the 323 BM.
Commodore as well, not too far away, and the very recognisable 2.5-litre Alpha.
John Harvey hard at work, working the sums out, but you don't have to be too bright at the moment to work out that Longhurst is catching, and is going to give Brock something to think about pretty soon. Of course, the great problem with the Commodore at present is the weight that the car carries, which we've talked about on a number of occasions, but it's got lead ballast in the back of it. And talking about the back, you see some blue smoke coming out from underneath the car on that occasion. In fact, David Parsons' car blew an engine yesterday in practice, and they changed engines overnight.
Because Brock loses a lot of that weight, doesn't he, after August 1?
Yes, he sheds about 75 kilos.
going to have a wholesale lead weight clearance in Melbourne.
Good sinkers.
He made a dreadful mess of the left-hander there at Honda that time, got out in the boondocks again.
And Longhurst is closing, and Bond also is closing behind Longhurst. So
here's a scrap.
I'm wondering whether the back left-hand tyre of Brock's car might be deflating or something. It's got some strange-looking wobbles.
Yeah.
Almost as though the fence had magnets on it, the way it was attracting the back of the car to the guardrail. So as they head up Bitchapave Hill over the top.
Yes, it looks like it's becoming a game of chicken. They could end up out in the rough for Brock.
Well, Brock still holding down third on the road, but Tony Longhurst for the last 5 laps has been gaining to the point now where he'll begin to challenge Brock within the next lap. And Brock running up on some traffic. There's the Brock team.
Yes, you're right about the tyre. Brock's going to come in, I think.
Well, there's certainly rumblings in the camp down there. Neil Burns and Martin Watt in conference. A sample of the Italian Momo wheels that they use and the Pirelli radial slicks, and Gary Wilmington's car in the background there, still out of business. So Tony Longhurst now right up behind Brock. Fourth placing in an Australian Touring Car Championship round wouldn't be too bad at his age, and it could potentially be a third. And I would say that there's definitely a problem with the Commodore at the moment. More than just a little smoke, and it's not just tyre smoke. Perhaps gearbox or differential.
Brock's got a little spurt on, but look how nimble the BMW is over the top, and as they drop into the loop, setting Brock up for an inside pass coming out of here. It'll be a beauty too. And there it is. Sorry, Bob. So Pete gets the go by. Tony takes a bit of the top rail as he goes past.
What's the flashing light for?
Maybe he's not happy. He doesn't want anybody to pass him.
I don't see why not. Longhurst did that perfectly.
Yes. In case you can't get upset from hero to zero. Coming out of Dunlop Corner, working down towards the right-hander at the lake. A great drive this from Tony Longhurst in the 23 car. We expect to see Brock maybe heading to the pits. You could understand if Brock was flashing the lights coming down the other part of the course to let his crew know that he was coming in. But they're still up taking times, and they continue past the line. Now the next person who's going to be on Brock's tail is, of course, Colin Bond, who is closing very, very quickly in the yellow Alpha.
This takes you back to days of old when the two of them shared Tirana XU1s.
You're right about that smoke. It's still there too at the back of the Commodore.
Coming down towards Mazda Corner again. Peter Brock fourth, Colin Bond fifth. I think that's about to change.
The car looks to be really slow out of some of these turns. Maybe one could even speculate that it's a gearbox problem. Perhaps he's not getting second or somehow. You can sit here and guess forever, but Brock certainly...
it's very sideways, very taily.
Real trouble.
Looks out the window.
He can't believe his eyes.
Bond goes by and Brock continues on.
The car just looks sort of lethargic for some reason, doesn't it?
Well, it's certainly not handling well for whatever reasons.
Still got some horsepower, obviously.
Yeah.
That stirred him on.
Have a look at the tyres, and they all seem to be black and round. Yep, doing the job. No,
it's that left rear that, if any of the tyres are off, it's that one.
Well, of course, you could overheat it quite easily here, and I suspect that's also happening, but I don't think that's the source of the smoke. As Glenn Malloy comes to the pits, he's got tyre problems. Well, that car, you remember, lost a wheel at the loop at the last meeting. So let's have a look at the surface of that tyre. It looked pretty clean, so I wonder why he's come in.
Peter Brock in fifth place, pursuing Colin Bond. Tony Longhurst is in third place. Dick Johnson in second. And, of course, Jim Richards continues to lead the race at this stage with 36 laps gone out of 52. And Jim doing it quite nicely, thank you, continues to open up that brake on Dick Johnson. So once again, despite the fact that he didn't have pole, didn't have the front row of the grid today, Richards, and although he once again slightly missed the start, he was very quickly into gear today to overcome that deficiency, and soon reeled in Johnson once more, and really has quite a commanding lead now, about
5.5 seconds.
90 metres. Well, it's more than 90 metres then if it's 5.5 seconds.
Yep. Yeah, so Richards has got things back under control once again. He will really wrap up the Australian Touring Car Championship with this performance.
You've got to say two things about both the driving of Jim Richards this season and the car. Immaculate, both. They really have been, and they've performed together that way, and that's what's put them on top of the heap in the Touring Car Championship for the first full year of Group A racing in Australia. Jim Richards is the leader at this stage of the race. Dick Johnson holding down second place, and Tony Longhurst in the 323 BMW is third.
Welcome back to Amaroo Park, the running of the Better Breaks 100, round 9 of the Australian Touring Car Championship. And, of course, Melbourne solicitor Jim Keogh in car number 20 has been a campaigner for the championship all season.
Oh.
He's having a few problems here today, but the reason he's staying out there because he wants to consolidate that lead that he's built up in the STP Rookie of the Year award.
The back of it's absolutely terrible at the moment, Michael. In fact, I noticed as he went through the loop, we could see into the dashboard of the car, and he's got the oil pressure light coming on and off all the time, which means that it's surging something fiercely. So Keogh, whose best performance in the championship so far was a 6th at Symmons Plains, although not really in contention in the Touring Car Championship, of course, stands to win a lot of money in this STP award.
Encouragement award. He needs plenty of encouragement with a car handling like that.
Yes. Well, of course, STP in conjunction with the Confederation of Australian Motorsport coming up with this competition to help some of the drivers that don't figure in the prize money, some money to be able to continue on. And Jim Keogh has been picking up, I think, somewhere in the vicinity of about $500 a round. So he's been the STP big mover.
Yeah, the total prize pool for the STP award was something like $30,000, so it was a healthy injection.
Well, it was good to see from the company, and also well administered by the Confederation of Australian Motorsport.
Jim Keogh, who's done a lot of racing in all kinds of vehicles, including a fairly successful Capri Sport sedan, with his hands full here at the moment with the Group A Commodore. And still, well, in fact, about 2 laps down on the leader, and would be something like around about 14th or 15th, I would say, at this stage.
Just back behind him, you can see Tim Slako of Western Australia about to have a lap put on him by Dick Johnson, but he's done very well here today.
Big performance from him back at Wanneroo with a 5th. You'll recall it was a sensational battle between Neville Crichton, Alan Jones and Tim Slako, nose to tail for lap after lap, and has given Tim the incentive that he needs to go on to Bathurst. And the car, when you look at it on paper, is perhaps the real favourable motor car at the Mountain in October. Powder weight's very nice and a very nicely engineered car. It's the ex-Andy Rouse British Touring Car Championship car.
Dick Johnson coming up on Slako at the moment. Slako hasn't had the luxury that some of the other teams have had to be able to go berserk with tyres. He's come over from the West with 1 set.
Yes, but they're a good set.
They are a good set. He's had them air freighted from England, specially built for the Rovers, which of course race very successfully in Europe, and he's got a container load on their way, but they won't be here for about another month or 6 weeks, so he's got to make do with this 1 set at the moment, both for qualifying and for the race. Under those circumstances, he's doing a good job.
Well, he's certainly had some drama getting here as well because of the airline problems that the country's experiencing. He had to fly into Canberra and took a bus to Amaroo, so that's how dedicated the man is.
When in doubt, go by bus. Ivan will take care of the tickets. They drop into the loop, and number 7, of course, is David Parsons. This car we saw at Lakeside, driven by Larry Perkins. Perkins and Brock are no longer a team. And David Parsons, the young Devonport dairy farmer, steps into the car here today.
The dealer team cars, Mike, in fact, are running 5th and 6th on the racetrack. Brock 5th, Parsons 6th.
Parsons, of course, got his run with the dealer team last year at Sandown, as you'll recall. Spent half of the race with the door opening.
And finished 2nd at that race meeting, so it was a sensational performance for him. Hasn't driven the car, or in fact any race car, for a long time. The last time that I saw him perform was up at Surfers Paradise in the Endurance Championship last year. And prior to that, it was the great performance from him at Bathurst in October, where I think he pipped Alan Jones there in the closing stages, didn't he, for 2nd place?
Well, here's
Sandown. Sorry, mate.
Interesting scrap with Parsons in number 7, and guess who's coming up behind him again?
Sandown's been a pretty handy place for the dealer team, both for Brock and, as you just mentioned, for Parsons, but they're going to have to wave the magic wand to get in the placings here this afternoon.
They had a lot of gearbox problems with this car on Friday, and they changed the box eventually, and as I said before, they broke an engine. We're down to a lap time of 57 seconds, as you can see there by the pit board. It's his first drive at Amaroo Park this weekend, and he's acquitting himself pretty neatly. A very smooth driver. First saw him about 3 or 4 touring car seasons ago when he was running his own car, and boy, he's in strife here at the moment. The car really oversteering, but you can see just how sweetly he steers.
See right behind, once again, John Smith, still hanging in there in the little Toyota. And not that far back behind David Parsons in car number 7. John Smith in the Corolla. goes down towards the lake corner. They've spread themselves out pretty well, right back through the top dozen.
And Smithy's in 10th place at the moment in car number 10.
Dick Johnson still with the impossible chase after series leader Jim Richards. Well, Dick, I thought you might have been able to bone this one this afternoon after you took off so well.
Right, yeah, so did I for a while. But anyway,
you must be pretty happy though. I mean, you've been putting together a lot of good seconds, and you've still got some goodies to come August.
Yeah, we've got a little bit to come, but hopefully that'll make us a little better off. Mainly in a straight line, Mike. The car's handling very well. I'm very happy with it.
That's what I was going to say. The only thing that really is against you is just the top-end horsepower. I mean, the car steers well, it's easy on tyres, everything else seems fine.
Yeah, and in certain situations, like Jim's car out of this corner here, is very, very quick. Seems to have the right gearing, and this is where he passed me.
That was something you were talking about yesterday, Dick. Do you feel that gear ratios are right for this circuit?
Yeah, well, you know, you always have a little bit different gear ratios to someone else. And, you know, you find that they're a little bit quicker in some places than others. And, you know, I've just got good gears somewhere, and Jim's got better ones elsewhere, you know, so it's 6 of one, half dozen the other.
Looking a little bit further on to the endurance round here, that would put your car in pretty good stead, though, wouldn't it, if it's got the endurance on its side? In other words, if it can run with its tyres and suspension and brakes.
Yes, endurance, and as far as handling and tyres go, but it's also got extremely good fuel economy.
The other thing that we're noticing, Dick, is your lap times are pretty consistent. So, again, that looks good for long-distance racing. Yeah,
and it's not too difficult to do. It's pretty difficult to go a little quicker and try and look after your tyres. And, you know, it's you know, what the hell do you do? You sort of go for broke or...
Dick, when you say it's not difficult to do, how difficult is it for you physically in this car?
Actually, it's not too bad, this thing. You know, we changed the front end a little bit from last meeting, and it's a lot lighter on the steering. That makes it better for me.
Be a lot easier than the old Group C car.
Oh, mate. Yeah, but, you know, it's a different kettle of fish, though, isn't it? You know, a lot more horsepower. You get another, like, 250 horsepower on top of this thing. I tell you what, you got yourself a pretty quick motor car, you know.
How good do you think this car will be at, say, Oran Park for the 10th round next weekend through the tight and twisty bits?
Oh, we'll wait and see.
Oh, you said
there's a BMW behind me, so I better go.
Okay, mate, let you get on with it. Thank you very much. Dick Johnson, carrying race cam again for 7 Motorsport, and doing a great job pursuing Jim Richards, race leader. Tony Longhurst in the 323 BMW holding down third. There he is, in fact, holding down third place on the racetrack.
Yes, not only that, he's closing that gap, and now I know why Dick is starting to get a little bit alarmed, because the gap is 2.1 seconds, and that's something that snuck up on us.
3 laps remaining.
Laps. Yeah.
Whoa. Hey, Dick, you might have your hands full.
Well, Michael, you were saying earlier on that you thought that Tony might have been a real chance for a third placing. It was a pretty good prediction, but it could even go far enough to be a second.
Well, the rate is closing. I'd be prepared to say with a couple of laps still to go, Longhurst's car has been very, very strong, and he throws it around here a lot of figure. And I think you'll find that he'll be catching Johnson. Yes, he is.
Well, it's one thing to catch, another to pass, and there's an awful big difference in experience between the two drivers.
But I don't think really Dick Johnson rather is the sort of guy that's going to hold up anyone that's going any quicker. He's got problems in a few corners with tyres. And Longhurst will be here to put the pressure on him.
He closed half a second in that lap, now to 1.7 seconds. Glenn Malloy, the next man to pick off along the way in the 635 CSI BMW. So you can see there's the gap. Johnson on the right of screen, Longhurst on the left.
Frank Gardner was saying that after next week's round, of course, they'll be pulling Tony Longhurst out to co-drive with Jim Richards. I think at this stage, you'll be having a ball driving the little car in the opening rounds of the Endurance Championship. I think this would be a great car for the Better Brakes 300 here in August.
It's going to be so easy on tyres and brakes, and I guess on the driver, that it must be a good combination in a long-distance event. And this is where the development is heading now, the BMW racing camp. They're looking at the 5-valve engine, 6-cylinder version of this for season 86.
Lap and a half remaining in the race for the leader, Jim Richards, who's about 250 metres ahead of Longhurst. Sandwiched between that pair, of course, Dick Johnson.
Now 1.2 seconds between Johnson and Longhurst. So he's pulled another half second again.
I think he might have enough to pull him in the last lap.
One lap to go.
Coming through Camalco Wonderlick corner. Car number 62, the fellow who's put them all on the board this season. BMW Muscle Power to the fore here at Amaroo Park today. Jim Richards, qualified third, leads the race.
Still 1.2 between Johnson and Longhurst as we look at the man who's going to pick up yet another victory in the Australian Touring Car Championship. 5 pole positions, and I mentioned his results before, and will add a further 25 points to his 188 total. And it looks as though his worst performance for the series is only going to be a 5th placing, so that's not a bad performance. To the left-hander at Honda. Still the battle continues for second and third.
I think Johnson
just clinging to it at the moment, as you can see. The gap now less than a second.
I think Johnson will hang on for second. Yep. Meanwhile, the late corner comes up for the 62, the black Bavarian machine. Oh, a little smile on Frank Gardner. And the last corner comes up, round 9, the better brakes 100 strike. Another one up to Big Jim. He's first across the line, 62. Second spot will go to Queensland's Dick Johnson, and third place will go to Tony Longhurst. A great finish that from Longhurst. And the rest of the field still coming through, but there's the man who's done it again, 62, Jim Richards. What else can you say? I think we run out of superlatives. Confirmation of placings there. First to Jim Richards, second to Dick Johnson, and third to Tony Longhurst.
7 out of 9 rounds in the Touring Car Championship have now been won by Jim Richards in this JPS BMW. Dick Johnson, you really do feel for the guy, because he has chased Richards home on so many occasions. At Lakeside again 2 weeks ago, here again today. And as he said, at the top end of the range, there's just not quite enough horsepower in the Mustang at this stage of development. But with the long distance races to come, and you can see the jubilation there, even if Frank is hard put to crack it for a smile, the rest of the guys are pretty happy.
You don't think he offered him a bonus for the day? Don't forget next Sunday, Gary, of course, round 10 of our championship.
Yes, the Touring Car Championship for 85 winds up at Oran Park here in Sydney next Sunday, and of course you will see it on the 7 network, as you will all the big motor racing coming up towards the end of the year, with the endurance race back here on August 4, and naturally with Bathurst. On behalf of Mike Raymond and Neil Crompton, I'm Gary Wilkinson. Join us again next Sunday for more 7 Motorsport.